You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hello, and thanks for joining Revolution 250, where we look at events that took place 250 years ago this week. This is from the American Revolution Podcast, a short bonus episode to remind you about these important anniversaries from the Revolutionary War. This week, we remember the British decision to wage war on the colonies and Lord Dunmore's proclamation during the first week of November 1775. By the fall of 1775, the colonies had been waging war with Britain for nearly 6 months. There were still many colonial leaders, however, that hoped King George III would step in and negotiate a political solution to the colonial dispute with Parliament. They hoped that the king would see that the open warfare in the colonies would indicate how seriously they took the protection of their rights, and that the leaders in London would want to broker a compromise rather than pay for the costly war on the colonies to crush them. General Washington referred to the British regulars in Boston as the Parliamentary Army, referencing the English Civil War, where Parliament fought against the king. By refusing to reject the king directly, colonists hoped that he could serve as a political broker to end the fighting and get a system in place to protect the colonists' traditional rights. As it would turn out, that was not the case. On October 26, 1775, the king gave his speech to the opening of Parliament, declaring the colonies to be in an open state of rebellion and calling on Parliament to support a military crackdown against those colonists who insisted on defying British rule. In hopes of giving an opening for a compromise, the Continental Congress had sent the Olive Branch Petition to leaders in London. But on November 7th, acting on the guidance provided by the king in his speech, Parliament summarily rejected that petition. 3 days later, on November 10th, Prime Minister Lord North appointed Lord George Germain as the new Secretary of State for the Colonies, replacing Lord Dartmouth. Germain strongly supported military force rather than diplomacy to end the rebellion. At the same time, Virginia Governor Lord Dunmore, who had been forced to take refuge with his family on a ship in the Chesapeake Bay, declared the colony of Virginia to be under martial law on November 7th. He ordered that all loyal colonists flock to his standard or be considered traitors. What got the most attention from Lord Dunmore was the so-called Dunmore Proclamation. This offered freedom to the slaves of any rebels who left their masters and joined the British. Now, the Dunmore Proclamation was not about abolition. It did not apply to slaves owned by loyalists. It was an effort to undercut the patriot movement by punishing those in rebellion and providing free labor for the British military. Now, to the extent Lord Dunmore thought his proclamation would weaken resolve, he was wrong. Word of the proclamation spread through Virginia, with slave owners taking the position that the governor was fomenting a slave insurrection against them. Dunmore would arm some of the escaped slaves, forming what he called his Ethiopian Regiment. Arming the escaped slaves only further enraged the colonists. Up in New England, the Rhode Island Assembly finally voted to remove Governor Joseph Wanton from office. Wanton was one of only 2 elected governors in America. Even so, he refused to back the popular patriot movement. His family largely followed Quaker traditions, opposed to the military and to defiance of established authorities. The Assembly had simply pushed him aside some time earlier and had Deputy Governor Nicholas Cook running the government. After Wanton's removal from office, he simply retreated to his home, where he maintained his neutrality through the war. Up in Boston, General Howe received word in early November from Lord Dartmouth advising Howe to evacuate Boston and proceed to New York. Now, since New York had largely fallen under Patriot control by this time, it was unclear whether Howe's small army could even assert control there. Howe decided he did not have enough ships to evacuate his army along with the loyalist population of Boston. He disregarded the instructions and continued to occupy Boston for the time being. The Continentals also took a noteworthy action this week. In light of not being able to punish the traitor Benjamin Church for his cooperation with the enemy, they updated their laws to allow the punishment of treason against the colonies to be punishable by death. Both sides seem to be slowly coming around to the idea that this was not simply a violent dispute, it was a full-blown war. I hope you've enjoyed this Revolution 250 moment. I originally covered these events in episodes 71 and 77 of the American Revolution podcast. I encourage you to subscribe for free on whatever podcast platform you like, or check us out at blog.amrevpodcast.com. Thanks again for listening to this Revolution 250 moment on the American Revolution podcast.